To bury bad news. Let's go straight to our political editor, Tom Bradby, tonight. Tom.
Mark, as you suggested there, history was made in this street today, but in the event that just seems a whole lot less compelling than the way in which this investigation has reached an incredibly dangerous phase for Downing Street. Yes, sure, tonight Tony Blair himself for the moment seems off the hook, but let's make no mistake about it. If Lord Levy were to be prosecuted, it would be a catastrophe, not just for him, but for the Labour Party as a whole.
He came to power on a wave of optimism, promising he'd be purer than pure. Tonight, Tony Blair might himself be off the hook. But if you think that is an end to the matter, of its explosive potential, of its capacity to damage, even destroy this man and his government, then forget it. Why? Well, how about this quote from 9 months ago, when questioned on this very issue?
As ever, I've got to... the buck stops with me.
Yes, and for that reason, this can only spread fear through the Blair entourage. Lord Levy is his personal envoy, his close friend. Ominously, he was once alleged to have told his friends he would take others down rather than take the blame for the scandal. He may be entirely innocent, but if a prosecution is brought, the consequences are incalculable. It was the Scottish nationalists who first triggered this investigation.
I'm sure Downing Street spin doctors are saying it's all just a cosy chat with the Prime Minister. I think we should stand back and just realise how unprecedented this is. This is the Prime Minister of this country, interviewed in the course of a criminal investigation, helping the police with their inquiries, in a situation where the only person with the ability to award peerages or knighthoods is the Prime Minister himself.
So how on earth did it come to this? Well, here's our super quick guide to how it started, helpfully titled Gongopoly, a game of money, manoeuvring and power.
Here's how the problem started for the Prime Minister. In the run-up to the last election, he desperately needed to raise funds to fight the campaign. Some big donors had given money, but the party was still hard up. The trouble was, big donations sometimes caused controversy. So what did Tony Blair do? He called in Lord Levy, Lord Cashpoint, to his friends. He allegedly came up with a way of making sure that the Labour Party got money, but without any embarrassing publicity. They would be asked to give loans rather than donations, since these could remain secret. And to encourage them to be generous, it is alleged that they were offered peerages, seats in the House of Lords, in return for the cash. The only problem with this alleged plan, it was illegal.
The Prime Minister's allies are still convinced this entire investigation is a gross injustice.
I think the people in government at the moment who've been involved in the police inquiry will feel probably regretful they hadn't done things differently, but also feel a bit unlucky that they're being called to account for practices which were absolutely normal and mainstream under previous Conservative and Labour administrations.
This investigation is headed by John Yates, but it was DS Graham McNolte who conducted the interview today. He's been described as slightly terrifying, and well, he might be, given the stakes. The Prime Minister was interviewed for an hour and a half without the presence of a lawyer. Whatever he said, there can be only one question for him tonight, as for every other observer in Westminster. What next? All eyes remain on Scotland Yard.
The questioning of the Prime Minister wasn't the only uncomfortable news the government released today. The Serious Fraud Office said that on government legal advice it was dropping a controversial investigation into a Saudi slush fund. For more on this tonight, here's our political reporter, Chris Shipp.
The deal was for 72 of these Eurofighter jets. It was worth billions to defence firm BAE. Yet Saudi Arabia was threatening to pull the plug. Angered by a British corruption probe, the deal was rapidly going cold. With British jobs on the line, today the investigation was brought to a sudden halt.
But continuation of the investigation would cause serious damage to UK-Saudi security, intelligence and diplomatic cooperation, which is likely to have seriously negative consequences for the United Kingdom public interest.
Not, the Attorney-General insisted, as a result of commercial interests, but it left other lords wondering...
doesn't that really amount to blackmail by Saudi Arabia?
So what got the Saudis so upset? The investigation here into claims Britain's biggest defence firm bribed members of the Saudi royal family. BAE Systems has always denied doing anything wrong. The Serious Fraud Office had spent 2 years looking into it. not anymore.
I think this decision is incredible. The Serious Fraud Office was a long way down the road of a serious investigation, and they've been pulled off by the Minister basically on the grounds of national interest, and there is no national interest.
Britain's defence contract with the Saudis was signed by Margaret Thatcher in 1985. But despite the serious allegations of fraud, today we were told, when it comes to Saudi Arabia, the rule of law has made way for our national interest.
An outrageous decision that the government is just going to stop investigating alleged fraud by Britain's top arms manufacturer in its dealings with Saudi Arabia because it's not in our national interest. This goes to the heart of the credibility of our politics.
Dropping the investigation is an embarrassing climb down for the Prime Minister, coincidentally also announced today. Coincidentally, ahead of his trip to the Middle East. Coincidence. Chris Shipp, ITV News, Westminster.
Back now to our political editor. So, Tom, you think he's been cleared, but just how serious does the Loans for Honours inquiry remain for Tony Blair?
Well, I think it remains incredibly serious indeed. And we've got to make the point for legal and obviously moral and ethical reasons that, Lord Levy hasn't been even charged with anything yet and may well not be, may well be totally innocent. But as I understand it, what surprised the cops in this case, at some point they were relatively bumbling along, but what surprised them is what has been committed to email and to paper in this case. And as I said at the top, I just don't think we should be in any doubt that were it to get to the point of Lord Levy being prosecuted, it would be a catastrophe for the Labour Party. It would also be uncharted territory. I say Blair's in the clear. He is for now. If Lord Levy ends up taking the rap, who knows what will happen.
And Tom, this dropping of the fraud investigation is also controversial. Has there been an attempt to bury bad news?
Well, Downing Street say, there was absolutely no deliberate nature in the timing, but I understand tonight that it was 100% Downing Street's decision to have that interview today, the interview with Mr. Yates or his team on the day of this Diana report. So, what can you say? One has to look at it with rampant suspicion. As to the Saudi deal, I think this whole business of the SFO inquiry into BAE and the Saudi deal is really going to reverberate as well, like the honours scandal, for months and months. What are we really saying tonight? Are we saying that the British law doesn't or might not apply when it comes to dealings with the Saudis? I think everyone around here is just saying, well, where does this leave us? What does this mean? I think the implications, as you heard there, are quite extraordinary. So I think we've had we talk a lot about historic days here, but I think this has been a really important day, and I suspect in both cases we'll still be talking about it in a long time, and certainly in the latter, in the Saudi issue, I think it's an issue we'll be discussing for many, many months to come.
All right, Tom Bradby, thank you very much indeed. Now, still to come tonight.
And Panasor's got... Catch it. That's an edge.